Okay, everybody, this is this week's amazing conversation with Kate. I'm here with my beloved Drew Lanham, who I met in 2005. We just figured this out at an incredible writing workshop in Vermont called Wild Branch. And I went up there, scared and raw in the midst of grief, and tried to pretend I wasn't. But Drew, saw through that in a heartbeat, and we shared a lot of tears during that really transformative week. So one of the things that happened during that week, you're going to find out that Drew's from the South in a second when I let him talk, is that Drew started to do some writing about his home place and what that truly meant in a way that he hadn't, I don't think, before then. And that has turned into this book. Now this is called The Home Place. I just got the paperback because the hardcover's with my mama, and she said she might have to keep it. My dad's already read it. It's a beautiful piece of writing. Okay, so this is it's published by Milkweed. I'll stick a link up on this video and ways to connect with Drew. But so right before I hit record, Drew and I were just talking. He said, "So how are you?" We haven't literally seen each other since 2005, so we're meeting up as he said, middle-aged people. But the thing we were just talking about, he said, "How are you?" And I said, "Well, I feel like shit right this second in some ways because of the." For those of you who don't know, there was a little kid who a little black kid who was strung up by some white teens in the northern part of New Hampshire, and I live in the southern part of New Hampshire, and New Hampshire's this big, so it's like my backyard. And he was injured and luckily didn't die, but it's the fucking principle that's got me absolutely riled. And we were just talking about the fact that that this is our kid. All of us, humanity's kid. This is what just happened to our kid. And then Drew was talking about connection just by complete and utter coincidence and not. Drew posted something this morning on the possibility of a lynching memorial on his Facebook this morning. So we were talking about, how some real ugliness is being exposed. It's not being created necessarily. And sort of how we both as, truly love-filled beings, who ache for connection, are really looking to hold on to that in the face of it all. Okay, so that's where we were, and I said, "Oh my God, let's hit record and make sure this is shared." But so, Drew, you were just talking about how you feel like this is, encouraging a coalescence of heart-filled people and people who feel connection. Can you remember what you were saying before I so rudely interrupted?
All right. Well, first of all, again, happy to be here and so happy to see you, Kate, after all these years.
God.
You haven't changed a bit. Not one bit.
I can see the white hairs there. Okay.
No, it is all good. I am that time at Wild Branch up in the Northeast Kingdom was very special to me because it was sort of a transition, and I think it was a transition for both of us in many ways. And so it was a transition and permission to be on this path of feeling. And so I'm grateful, forever grateful to you for being the strongest partner in that transition. So it means a lot to me to be able to talk to you and to see you today. The conversation that we have, and that I think many of us are sort of vortexing around, is this conversation of care and how we care for one another, how we care for the earth. And it's all a joint custody thing, I think, as we were talking about this child who was lynched who was lynched, who's another data point in sort of this sordid present, this sordid history and present of who it is that we are as a people. I think again, it's some of this. It's the wound being exposed in many ways, and as we were both wounded, and when we went to Vermont that first time, I think that we're still living with wounds, and the wounds that we live with really, I think, have to be exposed in order to heal. And so, hearing that story from you this morning is distressing, makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck and the bile rise in my throat. And as this child has survived, and I think you told me his sister witnessed this.
That's the story that I heard.
Their psyches are forever wounded, and there's something in them though that died. And so my heart goes out to them and to their family. My heart goes out to anyone who loves life and who respects life, and especially as it exists in all of its multiple hues of ethnicity and being and loving and all of that. But Kate, if you think about where we were in Vermont and how we came together, there was this recognition of sort of sameness amongst us, even though we had never met. And I remember that first morning that we read in Diana Capel Smith's class, and you read that essay, and I and others immediately understood maybe what we were in for. And it was more than about writing. It was about feeling and expressing and sharing really sort of this common cause of life that we're all in. So hearing that others disrespect it enough to take someone else's life or attempt to, or to intimidate or to discriminate, all of those things makes my heart hurt. So, you said earlier, before we went on, something about us all being on this very small marble in space, sort of hurtling to God knows where, But I have to feel like at this point in time, that there have been certain things. Hell, I'll say it, November 8th. But
don't edit here. You bring it.
You know what? It's even as much as that night plunged us into this other place. It's simply another sort of straw on the camel's back, really, because when we met in Vermont, we were in this place. I mean, we were happily in this place of, oh my God, how did this happen? But we were not, how did this happen? We were like, oh my God, how did this happen? Here we are. And Barack Hussein Obama is our president. And there's hope. And there's a moving forward in a different and new way. And people were openly talking about love and coming together, and and it was a different headspace. It was a different heart space to be in. And now, all these years later, we're like, how did this happen? How the fuck did it happen? Where do we go from here? And then you see, as we had permission to feel and to love, now people have permission to feel and hate. And it's a place for me of conflict, because I'm a free giver.
Yeah, I know.
We're both free givers. We want people to be who they are.
Yeah. Fully. This is the thing.
Yeah, fully, to be who they are. So the wounds that are there, that keep wounds that are sort of debrided, the scab is torn off, the scab is torn off, but all the while, as you said, it's been festering.
Mm-hmm.
It's been festering underneath because we haven't fully admitted who we are. And here we are in the week of 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
If you think back 16 years, right? If you think back to that point in time,
Mm-hmm.
and you think about where you were a few days afterwards, and we were all numb, and we were all wondering what was going to happen, what was next. But then, so here we are, and the scabs that have existed really since this country's inception,
Mm-hmm.
relative to race, relative to who we are, relative to how we treat others. It's scabbed over multiple times, and the you hate to say it, but it's one of the scabs was partial emancipation, was partial fulfillment of a promise. So you go from being 3/5 of a human being to being a human being who's marginalized in all sorts of different ways
And incarcerated.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I wonder who these people were, and when I hear stories like the one that you just told me, I try to play out in my mind who the people are perpetrating these things, how as some sort of human predators they stalked and decided to terrorize, to take someone else's life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I don't know how that wound is healed beyond mindsets dying out, beyond them
Yep.
becoming extinct.
That's what I've thought of too. I thought maybe this is one of the gifts of extinction.
Hmm.
You know.
I mean, but then how does that in us and those of us who call ourselves loving humans,
Mm-hmm.
how do we, short of some universal force pushing the smite button, uh,
Jeez.
short of some sort of cosmic
Mm.
anvil falling on the heads
Mm.
of the haters. I'm, you know, we try to push this message that love conquers all,
Mm.
and you feel like it outnumbers, that maybe at least in an electoral sense by 3 million votes.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes me question what the numbers really are,
Mm-hmm.
where we really are. As a black man, it makes me wonder who's targeting me, who has me in the crosshairs, or who's wound that noose with 13 loops in it, because they don't like the way I look, because they don't like the way I talk or what I say. So I think that's the question before us, this sort of convergence of hate.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of that, this convergence of love of those of us who are horrified at what's going on, whose hearts hurt when others are harmed. Kate, I wonder, I wonder how we push that hate away. I and there people have asked this question for a very long time. I mean, people were asking this in the 30s. I'm sure. People were asking this during pogroms. People have asked this tribally, as genocide and hate have occurred at all different sorts of levels. And so it makes me wonder, and part of the reason that I go from atheist to Zen every single day,
Yeah.
um, is how does this exist?
Yeah.
You know, what do we do? What do we do, Kate? What do we do beyond wishing and hoping, writing,
Hmm.
painting? You know, how does love ultimately win? And I don't have, other than the one to one,
Hmm.
you know, other than the one to one that we have, and hopefully that being like some sort of magical Prel commercial, um, that expands exponentially.
Hmm.
I just want to know what the numbers are. I want to know where we stand. You know, if 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 hate like that exists
Hmm.
still, and it's in young people,
Yeah.
um, then we've got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. So I don't know. Maybe you have the answer. You know, but I don't, and I'm struggling quite honestly, day to day, and it's this sort of. I remember your writing and you talking about what was the equivalent of this sort of very personal post-traumatic stress,
Hmm.
you know, and what you dealt with. Um, and that essay that you wrote, there was a river in it, wasn't there?
Yeah. I can't believe you remember this.
Yeah, there was a river in it,
Hmm.
and you think about whatever tradition you want to talk about and how rivers, bring things from far away to us, and they're with us for this moment, and then they're beyond us
Hmm.
somehow. But then ultimately, that water in the river ends up coming back to us in droplets of rain and showering us in some way.
Hmm.
But I remember you sharing that piece and sitting on rocks, I think. And, we're all sort of sitting on these rocks watching these things pass us by and on a daily basis wondering whether or not we'll wake up to um, what we'll wake up to.
Hmm.
And then when you wake up to something like this, it makes you question, um, it makes you question where we are. It makes you question the numbers. It makes you question where others' hearts lie in all of this. And these young people, how many was it? Do you know?
I don't remember. I read it. I hate to say it this way. I read it so fast with such horror that I didn't hold the details.
Well, I want our listeners to,
But I know it was like it was it was more than obviously it was more than one. It was like several.
I
And they were
looked at,
and they were teens, and the kid was 8. I mean, none of. I mean, but see, this is the okay. This is what I'm going to say next. But it doesn't matter. It matters in every way. It couldn't matter more to that family and all the people who love that person, including me, and I don't even know this person. And it couldn't matter more to that community, and it couldn't matter more to all of us. The details both matter and don't matter, because what it is it's oh shit. It's like when we hear that there's a casualty of war, right?
hmm hmm
And we hear, a service member was killed. Well, yes, a service member was killed. That's true. It's also that was, Robert, and Robert was 23, and he loved playing Monopoly, and he had a little sister, and he was married, and they were expecting a baby, and he's always wanted a Trans Am. And do you know what I mean? It's yes, a service member was killed, and there are all these details that never we never know. I don't know why I just went there, but anyway, what I was going to say a second ago is I had this hopeful image come to me while you were talking about love and connection. And I was thinking when we were sort of revisiting the river that I can't believe you can remember after all this time, kind sir. But I remember your land, so I don't know why it surprises me. But so in these floodwaters coming through and in the various ways that they do, occasionally there's a story of a human chain where someone who's got their footing holds out a hand to someone who doesn't quite have the same footing, holds out a hand, and they build a human chain to get to the folks who need help. And I have this feeling that what you and I do naturally, our love and connection impulse, it's not even an impulse, it's a way of life. I can't help it. I don't want it to go away. I don't want to lose it just because I'm pissed off and sad and wounded. I want to live from that place forever, and I want it to be contagious because then we wouldn't have these issues. But as we hold on to each other, you and I hold on to each other, and then you hold on to someone who needs that hand, and then they hold on to someone who needs that hand, and we just keep holding on. It's like, how are we going to solve this? I think we just can't let go. We can't let go. And, as we can find, we have to believe we have enough hands and we're strong enough and we can do it. I think that there's this feeling of exhaustion, and that's me as a white chick in New Hampshire. Okay, I am exhausted. And I have not lived this. This is not my life. I said this in a previous conversation, but one of these videos before, and that's one of my conversations with my darling Doug, who happens to be African American, and he said he grew up being scared of police, and I grew up believing that police were helpers. And that's one detail that starts to show that we as people have different experiences, and those different experiences are not just, hey, I went to Catholic school and hey, you didn't, or whatever. Those differences are so deep. I think we just have to keep on holding hands across those. I mean, I will never know what it's like to be a black man. Not in this lifetime. That's not happening. This is what I got. This is what I got this time around. I am not going to know what that's actually like. I have a good imagination. I have sympathy. I have empathy. I have compassion. I can imagine all sorts of things. I will never know. Right? But the fact is, me not being able to know doesn't mean me not being able to care and believe it to be true and believe it. The belief in someone else's experience. Trusting that they are having a different experience. Not needing evidence of that different experience, not needing statistics to back up that experience, not needing, saying yes, and I hold you in your difference, and I love you, and I'm going to keep holding on as long as you let me. I mean, that's just the truth of it. So, I invite us, you and me, right now, to imagine this human chain thing, or whatever version of that resonates, and just keep reaching out and holding on and reaching out and holding on. And listen, the numbers might be against us now, but if we hold on long enough, Drew Lanham, we are not going to be outnumbered. We're not, because people are going to start to say, wait a minute. And I don't know at what point other people who have been perhaps in one mindset, heart set, are going to move, because they're going to say, wait a minute. What are we creating, and it's not benefiting anyone. That's the thing. It's not like this is benefiting the people who are holding the hatred. It's not benefiting them. They're not getting more. It's not suddenly the universe is shifting in their favor. It's not, so I think it's like we have to hold on and hold out and reach out and keep talking about it and believe each other's stories. I have issues as me talking about certain things. Like, where do I get off talking about racism? It's like, and then I say, well, I have an African American daughter. Does that give me like, can I now talk about racism? Do I now have a pass to do that now, or am I going to be offensive? And then I think a lot of people are afraid to talk about stuff because they don't want to talk about something that then brings on wrath, the wrath of people who you're trying to connect with, the wrath of people you're trying to defend or advocate for, the people who, feel like, somehow by speaking up about certain things, it's a pose, like
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
be, I'm
Yeah.
trying to, inhabit the moment. There's this social thing going on and I want to be part of it. It's like, no, this is a human thing. We're human beings. In your book, you talk about a million things have to do with legacy and have to do with roots, literally and figuratively. And it has to do with, sort of who we are and where we come from in the near past, this lifetime, and also in the, our ancestry. Like, who are we? Where did we come from? And, if every single person, I'll just say in this country, although it would be really fun to do it on this planet, did those, like, where are my people from, we'd realize that we're all my people. I mean, this is the
Yeah.
thing, that I know this already, and it's like somebody else needs facts. I don't know. We are all, you know, you're my family. I mean, you're my heart family anyway, Drew. It doesn't even matter if you were a totally different species. But the point here is that this is it's like we have psychotic people in our family. Like, what are we going to
Yeah.
do about them? This big human family. It's like, Jesus Christ. And then we have, like, as you said, we don't want anyone to hit the smite button. I'm not done here. I got plenty more I want to say and do and be and love and eat. I'm not
Yeah.
done. I'm not done. I'm not done. So
I hope not.
no, I may be quiet, but I run deep. I got stuff to do. So here's what I propose. Here's what I'm proposing. First, that we should do this again, because I wanted to talk about other stuff, but this is the way life goes. But the thing I'm proposing, just to end this recorded part of our conversation, is that we just keep holding on.
Yeah. It's that connection, Kate. What you said something about it happening. Love is gravity and evolution. We don't have to believe in either one of them for them to happen.
Mm.
Love finds a way.
Mm.
It always does, and that's the faith, in the atheist to Zen path that I have. And so it's been all these years since we've seen one another, and that our love for one another is not faded. And the connections that we make, the lovely connections of hand to hand, that chain, that human chain, I love that. Thank you for that. That helps a great deal.
I don't know where that came from, but it helped me too. Because it all of a sudden gave a different meaning to what I'm trying to do. I mean, all of a sudden it gave value to it. Because you think, like, what can I do that will make a positive difference? I'm a flaming introvert. Like, I'm I have anxiety. It's like, I'm not going to be a great frontline marcher. I mean, don't get me wrong, I will do that. But that's not going to be where I'm going to be able to do my best work. My best work probably is just in being me as much as I possibly can.
And that's a good thing. That's a great thing. But there's power in this, Kate, and you will never know how much power you gave me in that strange place, in that sort of odd moment, really, of finding kinship among strangers.
Yeah.
So, but that's that hand to hand or heart to heart sort of thing. So we have to keep talking. You and I got to keep talking.
Well, we will anyway. Yeah.
Okay. But then we've got to talk to those around us. You've got to talk to your little one and to to your spouse, to Doug, and you've got to move things. We've got to move things, but we've got to talk beyond the people that we know. And I believe,
Mm-hmm.
I believe there's bliss out there, and those blissful moments
Mm-hmm.
of head to heart to hand
Mm.
are what we're searching for. And I so appreciate your quiet rancor because we can hear it.
Okay.
I can hear it. I've always heard that.
Thank you. Thank you, Drew.
You are very welcome. Thank you. Thank
So I'm going to end the recording with a lump in my throat. I'll put Drew's contact information in the blurb as I always do. And Drew, if you want to hang on a minute, I'm not done with you, kind sir. So you have to just wait. Okay.
I'm here.
All right. So this is Drew Lanham, author, conservationist, lover of the land. I should just say lover and leave it at that. Yeah. Thanks, Drew.
Much love.
Okay, and to you, truly.
Mm.